bike and run day. Chee! Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
And Poncho Man, everyone.
Poncho, do it again.
Day 4, Breakfast with Bob. Huggo's on the rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by Master Spas SFuels, right fuel, right time. HOKA, Fly Human Fly, Deboer, Wetsuits, Quintana, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We've now raised over $180 million. Keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, one of those athletes, Mr. Willie, a.k.a. One-Arm Willie Stewart. Round of applause.
Yes.
For Willie.
Now, why is the one arm thing in there?
I don't know why. You know. Yeah. Oh, hey.
It still wiggles.
I like that. So take me back to August 15th, 1980.
Oh.
You were all-state wrestler, undefeated.
Yes.
Going to go to University of Maryland and wrestle.
Yeah, but I mean, that wouldn't have lasted long because I had a grade point average of .011.
Talking to the microphone.
Like John Belushi.
You were Animal House before.
Yes, the original.
So you're in the Watergate building, working
Yes.
construction. What happened?
So I'm up on the roof of the Watergate building, August 15th. School started the next week. And I was pulling off old roof with all my cousins and brothers. We worked in a roofing company. And I was inside a cooling tower, which is on top of every one of these huge hotels here. And I was kind of ticked off because the guy I was working with kind of sucked. And I said, "Hey, dude, give me the rope." And he did, but he threw it in up over the fan, came down when it was attached to me. And it reeled me in like a marlin.
Like a flounder?
More like a marlin because we're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
In the original days, it'd be more like a grouper. But anyhow, I went up through that, and it dug in right here. It was the rope, and it dug in right here, and then snapped everything from about 6 inches down below the elbow. Snapped it off. Snapped it off, and I watched my arm fall to the ground right in front of me.
And then getting to the hospital?
Well, that was the tricky part of it. It was I watched my arm fall, but I felt like I had two arms, and yet there was a white bone and blood squirting everywhere. And I tried to crawl out and fell on my face, and then I realized I couldn't crawl because I didn't know how to crawl with one hand, really.
Right.
Because, you're not practicing. My arm actually still kind of worked. And then I picked up the arm and threw it out of the hole, and then I dove out of the hole where I was because I was underneath the cooling tower. And the arm landed in front of me, and I picked it up, handed it to a guy, and I got up because my bicep was kind of gross.
Yeah.
Was dripping down the white bone.
Right.
And I pushed my bicep up into the cavity, and it stopped my bleeding, and I felt okay. And so I stood up, ran to the edge of the building, and there was a debris pan there holding the garbage that we were throwing off the old building. I jumped into the debris pan, signaled the crane operator. I went down 15 floors, and then I ran out in the middle of New Hampshire Avenue and ran up to Washington Circle to George Washington University Medical Center. This is kind of funny because I don't relive this that much, but my father...
Yeah.
I was alone at that point because no one was with me. And I ran through the traffic, and I bounced off some cars. And my father, I don't know how he got there, but my father, I put my arm around his neck. And my father, you can imagine this if you're your 18-year-old son. And my dad, there's 6 boys in my family. And he supported me all the way through the emergency room doors, right into the office, past the front desk, right into the surgery room. And last I saw him, I was laying on a steel bench. And then they put me under about 45 minutes later. Woke up in the morning, I thought it wasn't real. Looked to my left, didn't want to look again, looked again, and I realized my arm was gone and my life forever changed. And I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but when you become disabled, it's almost horrifying personally.
Absolutely.
Because, you've watched how people with disabilities were treated all their lives, and this, comes back to you in CAF. And I lived that. And I lived that for years, because it was not till 93, 94 where CF shows up on the scene. And I was working.
You're talking from 1980 till 1994, because
I never saw people with disabilities elevated.
Yes.
Elevated. I always saw people as a horrendous thing, or that's awful what happened to you. I I never experienced the power trauma can bring into your life and change the way you think to make you better and stronger. Instead, I experienced trauma as awful. And it's like exposure to really bad things opens your brain up farther than you would ever think. And exposure to extraordinary people doing really difficult things makes you an Ironman. I'm not kidding. It made me an Ironman because you told me, you said, if you can do Ironman, you can do anything. And I said, sign me up.
Well, what I remember is that when you came out to Colorado and you're working, you're working in
the industry.
In the industry, and one of the people who comes to ski with you is a guy named Jim McLaren, who we started the foundation for, who was an amputee, became quadriplegic, and you're working with this guy.
He's a quad, and he is someone immediately, because remember, now I've been hurt for quite a few years. Yeah. I respected the hell out of him for who he was, and who he was past tense, and who he was that day. He carried himself with power, stood up straight, chest out, shoulders back, and I'm like,
and you remember that?
I remember everything about Jim. He walked the walk, and he was in a chair, and he didn't just talk it; he walked it, and he was in a chair. He gave strength to those that are around him, and I love that. I don't want to be perceived as weak.
And he was inspiring you.
Oh, he fired me up. I wanted more people like him. I wanted to be around. I needed my brothers and sisters with disabilities to believe in themselves, stand up, chin up, walk tall, no matter who you are, and show up. That was a big thing. And CAF didn't say, hey, Willie, here's a special pass to Ironman. They say, here's some opportunity and access to Ironman. It's up to you to take it, do it, train for it. And I said, thank you very much. I'll do my part.
Well, and your part, first time you came over here, no prosthetic arm.
Nothing.
Right? You've got a bike, and we're talking the winds out there are 25, 30 miles an hour. You knew you couldn't take your one hand off the handlebar and grab something from an aid station.
Ever.
So 1 gallon reservoir under the seat with a hose.
Yes.
Fill that thing up, ride to Javi, forget about the aid station, you can't do anything with them. Get to Javi, get off the bike, refill the reservoir, and ride back.
Seemed to work. 10 hours and 54 minutes later, I was done.
You were under 11 hours, which
and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I did go down to Brazil and practiced.
Right, yeah.
And humiliated myself there so I could show up at Kona and know what the heck I was doing.
Well, you knew what heat was going to be after you're in Brazil.
And it also gave me that experience of feeling like I couldn't do it, and then having a success kind of, no Brazilian knows who I am or thinks anything about what I do. And I loved it. I just got there and did it. And then it was a great experience. I was pretty horrible, but everyone's horrible at everything until you practice a little bit.
Well, when I look at the list of great endurance athletes, and I look at what you've accomplished, kayaking the Grand Canyon, 14 times Leadville?
Yes.
Leadman, 25 times Alcatraz.
That's right.
What you've accomplished as an endurance athlete, and I know you don't do it for you do it for that kid watching at home who doesn't know, who's the young Willie, doesn't know what life holds.
Yeah.
How important is that to you?
Oh, dude.
When you go to Walter Reed and you take a kayak and you show people, hey, with one arm I can flip this thing and flip it the other way.
There it is. That's a purposeful life, isn't it?
It is.
And it's like, if I don't show up here, what's my purpose? Is my purpose to hide in the basement? Is my purpose to be out of the game or in the game? I'm going to show up, Bob, until I'm a lot older than this. And I'll tell you what, there'll be failures and stuff. And when I went into Walter Reed, I walked in there and I watched guys teaching kayaking, refusing to teach the upper extremity losses because they didn't know how to do it.
Right.
It's like, that's not how it works. That's called adaptable. Figure it out. And to the great astonishment, the guys that were teaching that kayaking, they listened. And they saw that a 50-cent shoestring tied to a paddle attached to a prosthetic, but the prosthetic shrunk and tied together. I solo kayaked the Grand Canyon, 238 miles, class 5 rapids. It was hard, but I did it because I figured it out. And that's called adaptable. And that's what makes adaptive athletes, adaptive employees, adaptive citizens, adaptive husbands and wives and children badass. No, nothing more than that, Bob.
The first time you went to Leadville, you'd signed up.
Oh, right? That pissed me off.
I'm sure they were very excited to have you there. You walk in to get your packet, and they're like, "Yeah, you can't do this thing. You're not only a danger to you, you're a danger to the other people in the race.
So I thought they were going to show up there. Hey, one arm Willie's here. They told me to get lost. And then the worst part about that whole thing, Bob, was like, I believed him. I'm like, maybe this Leadville thing's harder than I can do.
Yeah.
And I was an okay mountain biker, but I wasn't good. I hadn't done anything real big. But at that point, I had I had 4 Konas under my belt at that time.
Right.
And they told me to go home. You can't do this.
And so you go out, you put a hoodie on.
Put a hoodie on.
Put a backpack around your arm so
That's
they don't
right.
see it, and go pick up your packet.
Get my packet, do my weigh-in. You had a weigh-in back
you had a
there.
weigh-in. You still kept the backpack on so they couldn't see
I
the
just
arm was
tossed
missing.
it, turn right. Definitely didn't say hello with this.
No. Yeah.
So then I get the backpack on. I come out, and I'm a little scared because I'm in, and back then it was 1,000 athletes, pretty more difficult course. And I started last. And I thought I sucked. But, I'm passing tons of people, so I must have not sucked that bad. But the worst part about it was I thought I was mile 40 and was only at mile 20, and I was, thinking I was good.
You're cooked.
I think almost 400 people didn't finish that year because it snowed up at Sugarloaf, which is about 12,000 feet. And I finished at 11 hours, 54 minutes or whatever, knocked it out. And then I just told myself, I'm going to keep doing this until the cows come home. And my goal is to do 20 Leadville 100s, and I'm going to be at 15 next year with Challenge Athletes Foundation.
So the other thing is people don't even know what the hell Leadman is.
No.
Right? That's the 100-mile mountain bike.
Yes.
All this at Leadville, all this high altitude, the 100-mile run, 50-mile mountain bike, 50-mile run, and the marathon.
And a 10K.
Oh, and a 10K. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And this is over what, like 2 months, maybe?
Yeah, it starts June 15th, and and then you do all of that, and you got to do it within the time limits, and that makes you a lead man. And it's not that important to me that I was the first one to do it. It's important to me that I did it.
Right.
And all I'm trying to do with what I do is tell a story for other people to follow. Because you know what, everyone out here with disabilities, they're probably going to kick my butt. And I cheer them on just as much as I cheer the rest of everyone else on. I admire them, I respect them, and I love the fact that we're on the same playing field with the rest of them.
When you came out to that San Diego Triathlon Challenge, we started for Jimmy, and Jimmy invited you. And you were like, I can't, I'm going to swim in circles. I got one arm. And he's like, no, you'll be fine.
Yeah, Jimmy called me a wimp in so many words.
Jimmy, guy who's quadriplegic in a wheelchair calling you missing an arm.
I think it was right. What's Joe? Is it Joe McCarthy?
Yeah, Joe McCarthy.
Joe McCarthy, who was a friend of Jimmy's.
Yes.
He taught me how to swim.
Yeah.
He's a quadriplegic, taught me how to swim. That was like, and I learned the most from him because he showed me all these little
rotation.
tricks. Rotation.
Really important.
And he's a quad.
Yeah.
He's a stud. So
that.
Jamie called me up and says, "You can do it, you big wimp." And then that was 30 years ago. 31, coming up to 31.
So when you come out to San Diego Triathlon Challenge, which you've been to pretty much every year, and we talk about the individual athletes, but there's 150 challenge athletes from all over the world.
Yeah, it's
a lot
awesome.
of them have never seen another amputee or another wheelchair-bound person, and there's legs laying all over the place and
it's
prosthetics.
Crazy.
And I remember your first prosthetic arm was Rudy's leg.
That's right. That is true. I had Rudy's spare parts.
Of course, you had Rudy's spare parts.
Yeah.
But when you're there at San Diego Triathlon Challenge and you see all these athletes, what are your thoughts?
Oh, dude, it's a magical moment. Only because we go from the minority and to being odd to the majority and being overpowering, and able-bodied people sometimes feel odd,
out of place.
It's like, I don't belong here. It's like, no, you don't. We all belong together all the time. That's the biggest problem that I find with a lot of my brothers and sisters with disabilities. If your mom and dad don't believe in you, it's pretty hard to believe in yourself.
Yes.
And if you're new into this game and you don't know CAF exists, you can stay out of the game. But nowadays, you just push a button, hit Challenge Athletes Foundation, watch 500 videos, and guess what? You'll find yourself. You'll see another Rudy. You'll see 20 Rudys. You'll see 200 Willies. You'll see all these cats doing crazy, incredible stuff.
Olympics, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
but showing up, man.
That's the
showing
thing.
courage. Believe it in yourself. Showing up is a lot harder than we all think. Showing up and trying to do something different than you used to do, and you feel embarrassed, there's no reason. Feel embarrassed by not showing up. Show up and fall on your face, and I'll tell you what, you'll get my respect any day of the week.
I think what I've seen over the years is our kids and our adults, when you go outside and you're missing an arm, you go outside and you're missing a leg, or you're in a wheelchair, the spotlight is on you. You either embrace it or you shrink from it. And our athletes have learned from an age of 3, 4, 5 to embrace it.
Chest out, chin
Chest
up,
out,
walk
chin up.
tall, walk proud. You're no different. Jimmy said this all the time. He goes, I'm a quad, but my brain's the same.
Yes.
And he goes, you know, and I believe I deserve respect. You do, Jim. You do. And he believed that to the core, that he is no different than anyone else out there. And if anyone dismisses him early, it's at your own expense.
Love it. How about a round of applause for Mr. Willie Stewart, one of the true legends of endurance. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's Aloha Thursday. Gonna swim, bike, and run day. Chee-hoo. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Cause it's breakfast with Bob. Chee-hoo.
And Poncho Man, everybody.